Hello, it's me, Dave March, the Spy Guy. And I haven't done a video in a few days, and I thought, well, Friday I needed to had something happens minor, not a big deal, but it kind of put me off. So I decided to take a little time, recharge my batteries, and think about what I wanted to do next. And then today I was going through getting ready for a coming soon feature somewhere else, but for a role-playing game that I really enjoyed called Delta Green that I'm going to be running for some people probably in the new year. And we'll be likely doing it on someone's show. Ooh. So I want to thank some of the new subscribers we got here. It's weird. YouTube doesn't always tell you when someone has subscribed. It tells you someone subscribed, but it doesn't tell you who they are. And so I don't necessarily know. So I want to thank Chadwick Hines for joining. See, there's something called private channels. So if you don't have you don't want to share your information, so it doesn't tell me when you subscribe. So Chadwick, I'm going to guess, is in that position where it didn't say, hey, Chadwick Hines, subscribe to your channel. He commented on one of the videos, and now he's getting a mention. Another person I'm going to mention is Andrea Cruz. Thank you. I've chatted with her on the Popcorn Planet channel a few times. And like during live streams, there's a ongoing chat and we've compared notes on some things. Then the other one, I guess, was Andy Signor. I'm going to guess you also did not have, you have your whatever channel you subscribe to me as set to private, because it did tell me you've been subscribed to by Popcorn Planet. Okay, and that's why I called you out, and then I found out you proved that you were right, so I'm apologizing for calling you out in that regard. So while going through finding some of the books and getting ready to kind of do this campaign for this other game, the game is called Delta Green. I will be definitely covering that here because I have a lot of the books, and the fact is my severed head is in the back of the player's handbook of the second edition. I paid for the privilege of being an art model, and then they decided the best thing they could do with my picture was to chop my head off and make me look sick. I'll show you when I do that review. But when I was stumbling through some of the old books, getting some stuff together, you can see Delta Green right there, back there in this picture. This picture here is not actually, is a background picture, but it's actually of the wall over there. But I don't have my computer facing that way because the power cords were all over the place when I tried to do it, so it didn't work out. So take a picture and put it in my background. So when I was looking through some of my books that are in my bedroom, I was like looking at them and saying, oh, hey, there's that weird module from that game. And I thought I'd do a kind of a series on role-playing game oddities. Things that were just so weird, so different, so out there in ideas that they're kind of cool to show to people. And one of those oddities is Babylon 5 role-playing game, second edition's The Final Flight of Santiago. One of the most interesting and strangest modules I've ever read. I haven't played it because though I'd love to get like 5 friends together and play this one in such a way, it's so different and out there, but my friends are all political people like myself, or some of them are, so putting them in this situation, which is in this module, and I'm going to explain it to you. So the Final Flight of Santiago is set a year before the show starts and has to do with the presidential campaign that's shown in the first couple episodes of Babylon 5. And they have the results of the presidential elections on Earth, and people talk about Earth, and it comes back. The president visits the station. Babylon 5, for those who don't know, is one of the greatest science fiction shows ever made. It is a show that was supposed to be over 5 years. They had to cut it down to 4, and then they got a bonus 5th season. So a lot of stuff in the fourth and fifth season got jammed into one. So the 4th season is really over the top. And then the problem with the 5th season, there's some great stuff in it, but it's not. There are decisions made in order to, the writer of the show painted himself into a corner, and so his characters make decisions that are not characteristic of themselves in order to fit what he did. Okay, that's a very vague non-spoiler warning, but if you ever get into that, watch the show or are a fan of the show, you know what I mean. That 5th season has some strange things happening in it. The character would not behave in that way, but I'm getting off the show, off the choice or off the thing. So in that show, there is a presidential election, and you see the final vestiges of it at the beginning of season 1, and now here we are in this thing's taken a year earlier during the start of that presidential campaign, where you, the players, take on the role of the campaign team for the president. One player will be playing James Fenton, a corporate chief of staff. Another player takes on Leon Coe, the Earth Force, like the personal, like general staff officer that's on the ship. Like the point is I'll get into that in a second, to be the military advisor to the president. Dr. Kingsley Rourke, science advisor. Jane Cantwell, the press secretary. Christopher Gull, economics advisor, and Jarash Aran, campaign manager. And I really wanted to get all 6 players. That was one reason why this didn't work out. I mean, some of the modules for Babylon 5, which I will cover eventually someday in the far future, are really great modules that really went in some interesting places and had some great ideas. So, and I've run some of them in different times, but not this one. One of the players is actually a trader working for, well, spoiler alert, in Babylon 5, the vice president becomes president. And I won't go into, won't spoil it too much. That's pretty dramatic stuff. But good God, the show's like 20 years old. You haven't watched it yet, I don't have to put a spoiler warning on stuff that's 20 years old. Anyways, so one of them guys is secretly working for the vice president. I often thought of like telling every player that they're secretly working for the vice president and not telling them, the rest of them, that they're all secretly working for the vice president, right? So you have the most important person, of course, is President Santiago, who's played by an NPC controlled by the game master, controller, storyteller, dungeon master, whatever the heck words you want to call it. I prefer storyteller, actually. There's also supposed to be a press pool, and I'll get into that in a second. Your players are on Earth Force 1, which is this giant spaceship that's always guarded by like at least one cruiser. I'm going to get into that. By the way, that's Canadian Smirnoff Ice, which, unlike American Smirnoff Ice, is made with vodka, which is delicious. And I've heard ghastly stories about American Smirnoff Ice. Malt liquor, what the hell? Anyways, the game starts out by having poll results, and it shows that Clark is at 36%. Sorry, Santiago Clark, which is the presidential ticket, and the current is in the behind position. The opposite side is Crane Hamato, which is at 44%, and there's 20% undecided. And what happens is there is during the course of the game, you are making decisions that will improve your rating in the presidential poll system. And you have a chance to, at different times, usually the media player, but some of the other people would be doing this, to make spin checks to try and increase the result or reduce the negative result on various decisions. They give you some ideas of what the powers of the president have, what powers the players have, and what about security, which is pretty much beyond the scope of the game. Then you have 5 small modules, plus the final flight. That really determines things. So I'm going to just give you episode synopsises and talk about it. So the first game starts with, actually, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit here. So each player, An Earth Force One, as Earth Force One departs for its tour, the campaign is rocked by the revelation that the Psi Corps may have violated its charter by endorsing Vice President Clark. So in the future, telepathy is a thing, and you find out in the show why that is. But there are various psychics who suddenly appeared somewhere in the mid-20s. The show is set in the 23rd or 24th century, and psychics started randomly appearing about 100 years before the show, and really powerful psychics like mind reading, mind control, stuff like that. And they're all bundled up into something called Psi Corps on Earth. Different alien races have their own telepaths, and it gives them some advantages. The revelation of the Psi Corps, a non-political organization, broke its charter by endorsing someone. At the same time, Psi Cop Al Bester visits Earth Force One, investigating the possibility that someone smuggled the telepathic drug dust on board. And things go from there. And then the more interesting thing, one of the reasons why I wanted to do this, is that what happens is one player is playing the press liaison, or press corps speaker. And what happens at the beginning of every scenario, that person gets to be put in the hot seat while the other players ask questions given to them by the storyteller or from their own knowledge of the show, and just like to wheedle and deedle to the player in that particular role. For the first president press briefing, does the president have confidence in Vice President Clark's ability to fight the election on Earth, or is the tour merely an elaborate way to throw in the towel? So this is a very similar situation that would happen in real life back in the 19th century on United States of America. There used to be what was called porch elections, front porch elections. And what would happen is the presidential candidate would stay in Washington or in his hometown, and every day he would come out and he'd give questions and answers to the press or whoever was there, and he would stay there and organize the election, while the vice president would do whistle-stop tours around the country. Apparently, I think Garfield was the first one who did it, so there's like about 5 presidents in a row who do this method of campaigning. So in this way, this show is in this module, you have that similar situation where the president is going off on this interstellar tour in the colonies to shore up support back there, where the vice president's staying on Earth to manage the campaign there. And you would think that it would be more likely you would do the reverse in their situation, since Earth is going to have the vast majority of voters versus the colonies, which have millions of people out there. But hey, it makes for a great game. So that was the first question. Will there be an official comment on the Maurice Crane speech at Earthdome? Our sources say that she's going to continue to criticize the president's handling on the economy. Can we get a quote from Chris Gull on that, given her reputation of many of his own published opinions? So getting like another member of the staff, Crane's using the challenger is using the words of an presidential advisor against him. In next question, is the president worried that visiting Mars will stir up bad feelings after the food riots back in 51? So yeah, there were food riots on Mars back in the day. Understand, and throughout the show itself, there's a growing separatist movement on Mars. Is the president worried that visiting? I understand the president will be meeting with various Martian independence groups. Is Mars independence back on the table? And finally, is there any official comment on the rumors that the Psi Corps has officially endorsed Vice President Clark as their preferred candidate? Will they be endorsing President Santiago? Does this endorsement constitute a violation of the Corps' charter? And that just blows up. And then there's like stuff to the press. Dealing with there's a crisis that happens in that module where players have to make decisions, and it's not clear what the result of that crisis will be. And depending on, like, there is one good decision, I think that there's one bad decision, one good decision, but could pay if it pays off, but if it fails, everyone hates your guts. And the other decision is like is a safe decision, but would be unpopular. Then you go to Mars and you have to deal with negotiating there. The problem on Mars, for example, uh, the you show up, you learn up that the Ann Carter, an official in the Martian governor's office who was coordinating parts of the president's visit to Mars, lost the Martian independence movement. They're refusing to meet with Santiago at all. So you have to deal with the press questions dealing with that. And then you got to go out and try and meet groups of people who could help you out in that. And I like the fact that they have a character named Deja Thoris. There's Mars Liberation Now, Martian Provisional Congress. Who are you going to get back to the table to do this? And then you find out there is a deep throat who will continually coming back in the next series of modules, who offers you kind of like, yeah, I can get you out of this. Just have to owe me a few favors. And so players can go off and deal with that guy. And then it comes down at the end. You got to decide based on what decisions you made. And then some of them, whether or not you made, you have to, who you met with will matter on the polls, and what you did with the Martian politics and giving decisions there. And some of them are very, it swings back and forth. So there's like continued with the status quo, +8 to Earth, -8 to Mars. Remove the governor, -8 to Earth, +8 to Mars. Limited the governor's term of office, -4 +4. Committed to Martian independence, but gave no timetable. -2 to Earth, but +4 to Mars. Stuff like that really makes this a decision there. And then you have to make a roll to determine how well your policies worked out. And you can have like +1, depending on your decision, you could have +1 a die of a D10, 10-sided dice, so 1 to 10 loss, or as high as a +2 D6 on Earth's the swing. So you're driving the votes around, and it goes that way. The next decision is Commander-in-Chief, where you have to decide. They give you a budget. Let's see there. A budget of decisions of the Earth military budget. And you have to go through and cut at least 20 points off of these things. And what they're on, you have an idea of their location and unpopularity. You can cut everything from reducing the border guard, scrap old vessels, sell old ships. And what is the results of that? The ships in the hands of aliens, private armies, fewer ships, less defense against aliens. Mothball ships was a 1-pointer. Reduce active forces. It's a 4-pointer, and it will be very unpopular to cut the size of the army. Reduce border guard, less defense against aliens, 3 points. It's a medium unpopularity. Yeah, so there's a whole bunch of things you can choose to do here. And then an alien ship shows up and decides to mess up the deal. And you have to decide how to handle this diplomatic incident on the side that's happening right next door. And once again, the results of your, once you have all that resolved, you go on into determining what effect it had on the election. So this is like, I get the feeling that maybe the writer thought he could get through this in like 4 sessions, but I have a feeling that you do it maybe one big day of it, like 1 6-hour session, or do 2 3-hour games. But the next one is A Dream Given Form. You're visiting Babylon 5, the controversial station that when it went online, because it's what happened to Babylon. Why is it called Babylon 5, you might ask? Because the last 4 stations, 3 of them blew up and 1 disappeared, never to be seen again. Just like gone. And of course, if you watch the show, you'll find out what happened to that. And then there is like, you have to do a state dinner, meet up all these alien ambassadors, and then you have to, after the state dinner, you randomly roll to determine who's next to you at the cocktail party and find out what's going on. You have to make a series of trade negotiations that will basically you have to get all these people across the finish line, and what will make deals in the economic sphere. And then finally, you have election night where you have a debate and various secret scandals will come back to haunt you. It can damage your popularity. Popularity damage without a quote and popularity damage with a quote. And then you have a final, you have a data crystal that will be given to you where Crane says some very bad things, and you have to decide whether or not to use this dirty laundry against your opponent. And if players have any last minute ideas, you're supposed to pitch them to the game master. And then you roll out the die rolls and let's see where it goes. Traditionally, of course, Santiago wins, and the game's kind of skewed to make sure that Santiago gets across the finish line. But hey, whatever. And then the final part of the game is you have to decide that situation where the vice president becomes president, and you got to you meet up with a certain Mr. Morden, and those people who know who I'm talking about will know who that is. And you have to decide whether or not to get on that shuttle or just go down with the president. So it's a kind of a, like I said, who comes up with the idea that we should do a game that's basically the West Wing in space? Like, do a whole presidential election in space. Well, that's kind of a, sorry, I was moving around a bit too much there. But that's kind of weird and wondrous, and I think we should all appreciate that. So, I don't know. I haven't really been role-playing game reviewing because I haven't actually run these games. So, but it's kind of like a talk about a review. I don't know. I score things at 100. Like I said, it's so weird and so different. I'm going to give it an 80 out of 100. Yeah, I still haven't gotten around to figuring out how to go down and put a banner to Abe Books yet. It's just been wanting to do anything else but, like, you know, it's that time where it's November, it's bad, and it's really bad because we're in the middle of the virus situation. So I'm sure years from now, people can look at this thing and say, oh, Dave, it wasn't that bad. But just, you know, we all have our little problems and we all work through them out. Anyways, if I'm going to have to do something around here to brighten up this channel a little bit. I want to get one of those little buttons down there. It says subscribe. Maybe we could get someone like to do one of those Nolan tones of subscribe. But yeah, like, share, subscribe, support. Visit my friends. They have some great videos as well. Yeah, and we'll be doing some other stuff later. So this is me. This is words of the great Andy Signor. Bye-bye.